I'm so glad you could join us this week as we continue on our opportunity to share stories with one another that we haven't had the chance to see before. And I'm really excited this week to have back Kat, Riley, Jason, and Daniel, everybody. I'm so glad you could be here. But Kat, what movie are we watching this week? It's your pick.
This week we're talking about one of my favorite documentaries that I've ever seen. Usually I come at it with the horror movies, but these are ones that really meant something. The one that we watched was a documentary that came out in 2012 called The Imposter. And filmmaker Bart Layton chronicles the tale of Frederic Bourdin, a con artist who seemingly tricked a Texas family into believing he was a relative who disappeared years earlier. So it takes place in 1997, the con, not the actual movie. But I picked this movie because it was really well received across all platforms. Although it didn't make $1 billion, it was a documentary. And it just, for me, it seems like one of those movies that people, or one of those stories that people would use to make a film in Hollywood that wouldn't be real but would have great twists, but it actually happened. And a 13-year-old boy goes missing in a small town in the US, and 3.5 years later they claim to find him in Spain. And the person that they found, who is saying that he is him, is older, looks different hair, different eye color, different dominant hands, everything, to the point where you could sit there and say, how could this family be so naive to believe that this is actually their kid? But it talks a lot about, or it speaks, I think, a lot on grief and how people handle that, and the desperation for hope and the want for hope, to the point where you will bring a stranger into your family and accept him, just to feel like you have some hope for the real person that you're grieving over. So that's why I wanted to bring it to you guys and tell you how awesome it was.
That's great. I'm so glad that you shared it with us. As always, just a reminder, this podcast is rated S for spoilers, but for the rest of you, I'd love to hear, what did you think of The Imposter?
I really liked it. I like true crime. Um, but I hadn't heard of this case before. The only thing that I had close to knowledge of in terms of serial imposters, as you would call them, would be, I think I mentioned while we were watching it, is Catch Me If You Can. But this was really interesting to me because I went into this movie not knowing that the guy was fake. I'm not like, I thought it was just like it from the grief standpoint of the family not believing that this kid was theirs. But to have that sort of flip on me, it was really interesting because for like the majority of the movie, I felt guilty about something that happened in like 1997 because I knew that this guy was a fake, and these guys were just like sitting here being like, oh, I'm so happy that my child is back. And I'm like, But I don't know, I really liked it. It was really interesting to sort of see the flashes of sort of how they were portraying the events happening, and then seeing the actual people sort of talking about their experiences through it and sort of what they were feeling, and how, like, you know, the sister was saying when she went to Spain to pick him up or whatever, like she barely looked at him. Like she just didn't care. She just wanted to have him back. It was really interesting. I liked it.
No, I also I enjoyed it as well. I too, like, I had never heard about this before. I'm not much of a true crime listener or watcher. I prefer fake crime. But this was like pretty cool. Like I've watched a few documentaries in the past, but I don't think any of them were actually like true crime based. So this was kind of a first for me. And yeah, it was weird. I was watching it kind of like, you know, thinking like how are these people not realizing that's not like their son or brother or family member, like, you know, yeah, from the ages of 13 to 16, 17, like you do grow up and, you know, your body changes. But I feel like it doesn't change to the extent of where you look like a completely different person. But again, like he was spinning this tale about, you know, having like chemicals put into his eye so that it changed his eye color, and being forced to speak Spanish, so that's why he has an accent. So I don't know, like knowing that it was like fake the whole time, I'm kind of like, how are these, like, what is going on with this family? But I guess if, you know, if you're in that sort of grief or probably mourning, like, you know, they were just kind of looking past it. But they were also like closer to the end, like insinuating that like maybe the family had something to do with like the boy getting lost initially. Maybe he wasn't actually lost, but something more sinister happened. So they played along saying that, oh yeah, like this is our brother in Spain. Because it, you know, they had to keep up a story, which if that's true, I would love to hear more about that. And I would like to watch Imposter 2, Among Us, Sus, or whatever it would be called. Because I want to hear more about that. But I mean, who knows? But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. And it was really cool. It was also just cool to hear about, like, he had, I think it was, what, over 400 fake identities that, like, this guy did. I don't remember his name. But, like, he had done it, like, so many times and just kept getting away with it. Like, he's not in prison for the rest of his life. I don't know. It was weird, but it was really cool overall. So, yeah.
Sure, if they could do like not a mini documentary, like a mini documentary, like a TV documentary on his life, because the details that he had about the kidnapping and everything that happened to him, and how his life was growing up, is, I wonder how much is fact and fiction between what he's using as the excuse of why he's changed and stuff that may have happened to him. And I think like Riley had said, the sister had basically said, I'm coming to get my brother. This is my brother, and that's what it's going to be. Like, she had already decided, no matter what, even after the FBI had told her, like, this guy's not your brother, don't come to the airport. She was there even afterwards. And I think just the way that, like, how much do we talk about and give away about ourselves that we don't even know about, that people could kind of take and run with? For example, in the section where she just came and gave him all this information through the pictures of who his family was, this is your uncle, and him just saying tiny little things like, oh, he's grown, or oh, he looks heavier. Just throw out things that anyone could say about anyone, really. And she just handed him all this information to the point where he could trick almost everyone on a panel of judges to see, when they said, oh, you've never seen these photos before, how much of it was fed to him as well and given to him. And the part about him blaming the family for the disappearance, really, I think, is the last ditch effort to get the spotlight off of him, and for him to try to kind of fade into that and use that, because all of a sudden they were cleared. It would be very interesting if something happened, but yeah, it's just how much can someone find out and use against you with just a few little questions is kind of freaky. Even how he was a teenager and he was called and left alone in a police station and just called the Center for Missing Persons and got all this information. It's amazing.
The level of psychosis it would take to do this is astounding to me. Like it just is. I I liked it better the second time. I watched it a second time because I fell asleep when we watched it the first time. I was kind of bored.
We know.
You know?
Yeah, it was just me and Kat watching for a little while.
My camera was off. How did you know?
I think
Because
Riley and
like,
Jason were there,
hello?
but they just weren't talking in the chat. But there was a point where it
Oh,
was just me and Daniel.
I was out
yeah,
cold.
no, I was there the whole time. I think I might have gotten up to go to the washroom like once, but like I just don't chat. I'm trying to focus.
Okay,
Figured that about
so I was
you.
asleep. I woke up at the end credits with the last 3 minutes and tried to piece together. I saw most of it, but then I went back and rewatched the parts I missed, and um, it's such an unbelievably dark story on so many levels. Like, and then the ending, the way that it ends with this with the suggestions about the actions of the family, it's like, oh, this is so much worse than I thought I thought it was. Catch Me If You Can. You can, Riley, you referenced Catch Me If You Can earlier, and when we were watching it, you did. This is not Catch Me If You Can. Catch Me If You Can was like him forging a few checks, and everybody's
Well,
like, "Ooh, look at how funny he is!" I'm like, yo, this is dark. He faked abuse.
well, this is like that was like the only correlation I could have is Catch Me If You Can. That's the only other thing that I've ever heard of like
Right.
serial imposterness in.
Yeah,
This
no,
was closer to Identity Thief with Melissa McCarthy.
it's always got to come back to McCarthy with you, doesn't it? It's always
Yes.
coming back to McCarthy.
But the thing is like, was it all made up? Did this happen to him and he's just using it to get through?
What?
He was a child actor when he was younger.
That's also a thought that I had though with like the story, right? Because like even what was it, that FBI lady or Interpol lady who was saying like people don't just make this stuff up,
Yeah.
right? Like especially not to that degree. Like how much of this stuff like actually happened to him and he just uses over and over because like obviously he could say it with full truth that it happened to him because it did.
Yeah, and it says like he didn't have a dad and his mom was really distracted like as a person, so like he was always kind of seen as an outcast, and when he was a kid he started to impersonate orphans of a way of getting attention. So this was almost like a how do you say, like a survival technique, maybe like your mom's not around, so we'll just pretend I'm an orphan so I can get some attention and food and love. Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why Daniel said slay. That confused me.
He started acting at a young age.
Oh. Yeah, no, man, and the interesting thing about his character, and I say his character because he feels like he's playing a role throughout the whole documentary.
100%, yeah.
He's both sympathetic and like not at all. It's so interesting. It's like he can turn it on and off, and I guess he has.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, still, it was. I just can't fathom it. Like as I was watching it, I'm like, I don't get this guy. And it's not because I wasn't interested. I had no connection with him. I'm like, I just don't understand how you work. And I guess that's the appeal, right? Like it's sort of part of the appeal. It's like there's then there's still the mystery of the missing son. And then it ends on that, like, the guy's still digging in the yard, and
Right?
it's like, I half expected him to hit a rock and say, "I found something," and then the camera cut. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
that's what they're playing it as, right? We're gonna keep digging, that's what it is. But it's interesting. I did, you said something earlier, Kat, and I was thinking about this when I was watching it. Is assuming that the parents are not involved. Let's assume for a minute the parents have nothing to do with the missing son. Um, the amount of difficulty, I don't know, difficulty is not the word, but the ability to convince themselves of something that did or did not happen. I mean, the mind is such a fragile thing, right? Like, but I mean, in this particular case, no, this is really who it is. Well, there's all these things that say he isn't. Well, I have an excuse for all of them. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
What do you mean you're telling me that this isn't our child who is speaking with a French accent from Spain? What do you mean?
But again, like his response was not unreasonable. He said, he was forced to do these things, and that's why it's affected his speech and trauma response and all this stuff, and who argues with that?
Right. Who are you to say to a kid that they're not traumatized? That's the beauty of it, right? Like, even he was to the point, and like Daniel said, he's got over 40 of these that he's committed. There's one tagline for the movie, and it says, "There are two sides to every lie."
Mm.
So if you look at it in the way that, like, there are two parties involved and there are two parties lying, one's to themselves and one's to another person. The sister was very confident in saying that she was bringing her brother home. She wasn't going home without her brother.
Yep.
And this family had a loss that was tragic and scary. The person I wanted to hear from a lot was the brother, because the brother had come in and literally took one look at him and said, "What?" I can't remember what he said to him. It's like, "Good luck,"
or something like that.
Yeah. And refused to have anything to do with him, and said from the beginning it wasn't him. And that was the brother who unfortunately was the one who told Nicholas to walk back from the basketball court. And that's how he ended up getting taken. So I wonder what his experience of all of this is. Like, my family's mourning, I'm not gonna fight you.
Mm.
I
And he
would
did
I
struggle.
I would even want to hear him just like talk about what his experience was like, just like around his family after that. I want to know if maybe he didn't want to say anything because maybe, like, maybe his family blamed him,
Mm.
and
Yeah,
he didn't want to start that again by, "Oh, well, you're the reason your brother was missing in the first place, and now you're telling us when we find him that it's not even him. Like, who do you think you are?" type deal,
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like, maybe he's like, crap, like now they're finally happy. And I mean, he had addiction issues himself. And I mean, who wouldn't after a tragedy like that, and feeling the way he might have felt? But for him to be the one who was there the day his brother disappeared, and I would think, if I was in his shoes, the one who would want it so desperately to be his brother so he could have that guilt removed for him was the only one who was like, "Nope, I'm not having anything to do with this."
I'd like to hear from Jason to hear what he thought. He hasn't said much.
Um,
It's not Jason. There's just an imposter on the other line.
It's true. There's no picture.
yeah. No, I thought it was okay. The movie. It was interesting, like, it being actually happened. The whole time though, I was like, oh my God, these guys are idiots. How are they believing this? I was like, I would never fall for this scam. I was like, this is like worse than a pyramid scheme. This is just like, just like so dumb. It's obviously not him. Like it's like one step lower from like a kid from a totally different race showing up and being like, "Hey, I'm your kid." But like, I don't know. It is interesting because I guess you could say, "Oh, he's such a good con artist." Um, but yeah, that is weird. And then it is something to think of. Like they probably did like maybe killed the original kid or something, or something happened. Like I know it was alluding to it at the end, but that's like a whole different thing, and that was a lot more interesting, I think, than the little con artist. I am interested in knowing why you thought we needed to see this cat.
Oh my lord.
I honestly, because when I first saw it, it was one of those movies where I was like, oh my gosh. Like I was like, I went through all of the emotions, I feel like. Like I felt sorry for the family. I was mad at this imposter, but then I was angry at the family for believing him. And then I went through the whole part about like maybe the family did do this. And I also, one thing that really like hit me when I was watching it was the fact that like at the beginning you're like, oh, this poor family, it's cut and dry, it's black and white. This poor all-American family has lost a family member, which is all true, but then you learn that things weren't as rosy as they think, right? Like this kid was a hard kid to have. He did have a troubled past. He had run away in the past, and their family was going through strife, which and conflict, which actually made it easier for me to believe that they would fall for something like this. Like I just felt like it was like things are not always as they seem, and these are things that are happening, and what is grief doing to us? Like you could sit there for me like, you idiots, like how could you not see this? This is literally a French man coming to you and telling you this stuff. But it was just one of those movies where I sat after and I thought about it for like a long time, and I really tried to process it, and I thought, you know what, this is something that I think people should see, because how crazy is this that this happens? And it happened internationally, and it happened with a family that, I don't know, that's just one of those normal families. There isn't this like big story with them. This was just a struggling family who needed something to hold on to. And him as a person, this imposter, like his whole story, and the fact that you have to be pretty friggin' smart to be able to do this. And what was your situation growing up that led all of this to occurring at the same time? Like one of the quotes from him was, before I was born, I definitely had the wrong identity. I already know I was already prepared not to know who I really was. And a new identity with a real passport, an American passport, he could start over. And who doesn't want to do that sometimes?
Mhm.
Who doesn't want to just have a new identity, especially like growing up with a background that maybe you're not loving, or a family that you don't love? But all of that wrapped up into this story and so neatly packaged by this like producer was just so well done, I felt. If that answers the question.
If it's one thing to start over, it's another thing to have 40 different identities.
And that's the other thing that makes this such an interesting movie to me, is that this man is still alive. He is married and has 5 children now. He spent time in psychiatric wings. He spent time in jail, and now he's just living this life of like, well, that was a fun and interesting young adult life, and we don't know what the marriage is like or how he is as a father, but now he's just living in France, done with his adventures.
Maybe he
Does
only
that
has
show-
one kid, and the kid is taken after his father.
Ironically, he pretends to be the other two of them. That's what it is.
He
So
just plays all 5 kids for his wife.
it's,
My
he-
man.
yeah, it's the end of Psycho, is what it is. It's just all the characters are him.
Right?
One sec, my other kid is calling me from the other room where he can't be in the room with the other kid.
Hello, Daddy. Are you there? Yes, Dave. Let me be with. I'll be right over there.
So after all of this, is this man crazy because he's able to do this, or is he just like hyper intelligent and now is retired? How does that happen? So that's why I
Both?
think that both, maybe, yeah. Like you have to have some serious mental health issues, but to be able to control people the way he did and perform the way he did,
I think
that's why I
he's
was
definitely
thinking.
a genius, like 100%. And a lot of, like, I suppose you could say, like, quote unquote, like true geniuses were seen as psychotic or unempathetic or crazy, right? Because they were just operating on a different level from other people. And this guy, he is, in my mind, 100% a genius. Does that excuse anything that he did, make him any less of a terrible person? No. And I think he should definitely be in jail. I don't know why he's in France with his 1 or 5 children. But I think he was a genius, and I think that there is definitely a mental health standpoint probably coming from, the fact of, him having to pretend to be an orphan to get love as a child or something. But I don't know. I think he's definitely genius.
You think he still is in contact with that family he's on?
Wait, you think he calls them up on weekends? And
They send him money, maybe?
No.
he calls them up and says, "Hey, it's your son."
Now I have a French accent. It's there's a sociopathy to it too, right? Like we talk about the movies like you did with the big
tall.
Bad Wolf.
no wait
Bad
what's the
Wolf?
one that we watched that was Jason?
Big Short.
James and the Giant Peach.
The Big Short.
James and the Giant Peach. That's what?
That
Velocipaster.
I think it's 1 in every 100 person, or 1, and mostly males, are sociopaths. And we think of sociopaths as like these evil demon people that are like killing and have no regard for anything. Like we see that in all of our like serial killers and a lot of sociopathy in that. But in everyday people, we're passing at least 1 every 100 people. And some of them are like in The Big Short, where a lot of sociopathic tendencies are found in people that are doing big business, that have to have those cutthroat feelings and, kind of step on the little guy to get higher. And we're seeing it in him as well, in the sense that he has no regard. And honestly, I don't feel like the family had anything to do with the death of this kid. I feel like it was just a tragedy. Who knows? Maybe they did. But the fact that he was able to get this far, and then when he was caught in it by the FBI, he was like, oh, no. You know what? I think the family is in on it. Go check them out. And to just not only manipulate and con a family in grief, then be able to throw them under the bus to save himself. I don't understand how he is married and having a relationship with someone and kids right now, because if you are a true sociopath, I mean, there are many sociopaths that are married and have kids and whatever, but it's just incredible to think about the manipulation that took, and hey, you know what, the will to survive, to put yourself first and say, I need to survive, I need to eat, I need to have what I need to have, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get it.
I think it would be funny to find out that he was like working in a McDonald's or something out there. You know, he's like, or a bank. That'd be amazing. If he was working at a bank, then you got your Catch Me If You Can. That'd be great.
Right? He's just
That's a great
chilling
story
and
right there.
like,
I just wrote a great story for a sequel.
or that it would be even greater if he actually didn't have all of that family or anything. It was just mannequins in his house, or like
Oh my
he
gosh.
dressed up like, what was the movie? Was it the one with the motel? Psycho.
That's
Where he's
yeah,
just
Psycho.
like dresses up as his own wife. That's what I want.
This it's staggering. And you know, I don't judge the family at all.
No.
Not in the least. I know I've heard people say, how could they believe it? Hey, we've talked a little bit about the mind, I think, off and on a little through the films we've been watching and stuff, but I think the mind is such a fragile thing. And I think memories are fragile. And you can convince yourself things good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they hadn't seen their son in 4 years, their brother. And then they get a call. Like, he didn't walk up to the front door and say, "Mom, I'm home."
No, it was just a random.
He sort of showed up on the radar. Like the story tracked. He planned it well for the most part. So I mean, yeah, I'm sure they wanted to believe that. And I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think that makes them stupid.
No.
I think that I don't think that makes them stupid or weak. I think it makes them broken and sad and hurt and scared, and we think we found an answer, so we're gonna do this.
They needed it too, just as much as he did, maybe.
That's the saddest part of this whole thing, to be honest. I mean,
Grief.
he's crazy and all. He's a crazy genius, whatever he wanted to settle on, or both, or whatever. But it's the sentence at the end that I think it's the sister says, or something that says, all of a sudden we were back to square one. And I'm like, that's the worst. That's the worst thing here, to me. That's the worst thing. To wake
They
up
lost
one
him all
morning.
over again.
Yeah, because they had screw what happened with the guy. They had pieced together a part of their story they'd lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was taken away from them again with no answer, unless they really know what happened and blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same person actually makes a comment, why would we fake somebody coming home when nobody was looking for them anyway?
Mm-hmm.
And do this thing? It's like, yeah, why would you? It's like, well, everybody just assumed they're missing. No one suspects you of murder. Oh, look, he's back and he's a psychopath. It doesn't make any logical sense, but it's that death of closure that I think is the most devastating part of this whole film.
Yeah, rightly said. That's exactly it. So another pick me up kind of movie.
Yeah.
We are in this trend of dark films. I don't think it's getting any lighter. Are we wrapping up here? Are we sort of wrapping up?
No, like if anyone has anything else, like Daniel or Jason, I just wanted to say that I looked him up on Wikipedia, and I think it's amazing that like he was born in 1974, so he's just like a bit younger than Steve.
Oh my god.
Anytime I can.
I like that you said he's a bit like I think it's amazing that he was born in 1974. I'm like,
Sorry, he's 47, but his occupation, serial imposter from 1990 to 2007. So,
there's good
because I was like,
benefits with that.
is he working in a bank somewhere? But he apparently, after he married this woman, he made a Facebook post stating that his wife had left him and that she'd been unhappy for 10 years, and she left him and the children, or she left him with their children. So she took the kids, and no one knows the status of where she is right now or where the kids are. But a TV, that could have gone very dark, but I'm sure she's fine. A TV producer, like a TV show, interviewed him after the birth of his first child that was a daughter and said, is this it? Like, are you, now that you're a father and a husband, are you going to become a new person? And he said, no, this is who I am. So I don't know if that was like, this is who I am in reality, or is this like, no, I'm an imposter by nature? Like, I don't know.
Man.
It was actually, the daughter was actually just one of those dolls that you get in family planning classes with, like,
right?
It's Annabelle. It's got
That'll go right back into horror movies. So this is
there
in
it is.
fact,
It ties. It tracks.
Continued train of horror movies.
It tracks. Cat's
But
train of thought.
I think this is a movie that you can't miss because it's on a level that you wouldn't know was out there, and it really does bring about conversation about grief and trauma, and why was he never looked for? Because he was from a lower income family? Like, I don't know.
No, because he had 40 different identities.
No, Nicholas Barclay.
Oh, the kid. I'm like, the guy owned every house on a block, and he was everybody.
It's a very tiring life. It's like what's that movie that you like with Jim Carrey?
Truman Show.
Truman Show, but he's just every character.
He's every character,
including
when the police
director.
were canvassing the neighborhood, he was just running out the back door to the next house, doing a quick costume change.
No, Kat. It's like Men.
I don't even want to speak to you about that movie. The fact that you sent me to watch that film and did not prepare me at all for the amount of, well, I guess it was just one penis so many times, and then like 80 vaginas. I remember the end where everything just became a birthing vagina. I
told you not to watch.
You said it was gory. You didn't tell me I was watching a birth 8 times.
Well, you didn't have to stare at it. I just did this.
I did this.
But you're still watching. This does nothing. This does nothing.
Gives me the opportunity to quickly close it. That movie was so messed up, it wasn't even funny. You guys want to see a movie that's going to scar you for life? Watch Men. I had no idea what I was going into. I hadn't seen a trailer, a poster, or anything. And then, but the grossest thing is that with all the gore, the only thing that bothered me was that his ankle was still broken and he was trying to walk.
They have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway.
At the end with the husband.
No, I know what you're talking about. They have no idea what you're talking about.
Anyways, if you haven't seen Imposter, watch it. It's something that's a great watch. It's only an hour and a half. And it's real. That's what I love about documentaries. They document things that are real.
Oh, I just got that.
Right? Initially, the family hadn't wanted to participate in the documentary at all because they had been so poorly portrayed in the media regarding the fact that Nicholas was missing and had been treated terribly by media. But they eventually did decide to do it after speaking to the producer, and all of their memorabilia of Nicholas, the only things that they have left, because remember they mentioned in there they had a house fire, were all that we saw. So they lost him kind of multiple times. But see it.
All right,
Watch it, damn it.
What about the rest of you? Is this a movie to be missed?
I'm of two minds. If you're one like me who likes true crime, I'd say to not. No, like to not miss it. Calm down, Catherine. But because like I never knew that this case existed, and then after I watched it, I looked it up and I read about it and I read about the guy, and it was really interesting. And but if you're one who's like afraid of things that go bump in the dark or whatever, and you don't want to read something or hear something that's like true, then if you miss it, it's not going to be the end of the world. But I'd say that for me and what my interests are, and for people who have interests like me, it's a movie that you shouldn't miss.
Okay. Daniel, JT.
Yeah, I mean, if you like to, kind of be questioning everything that's happening in a movie, like you want to be on the edge of your seat trying to figure everything out, then it's definitely a watch it. Even if you don't and you just like documentaries, or like Riley said, like true crime, like yeah, this one was a good one. It wasn't boring, which I know that's a lot of reasons why people don't watch documentaries, is they always just think, oh, it's going to be boring, like a monotone voice just talking over like stock images or whatever. But like this one was kind of entertaining, so I think it's definitely one to watch. If you don't like documentaries whatsoever, or don't like true crime or thriller type stuff, then go watch Men or something. Maybe you'll like that more, or Velocipaster, whatever. But no, I definitely recommend this one.
T?
It was okay. I guess I'm not really a fan of like documentaries and true crime. It was interesting. I don't know. I'm on the fence. I would say I could have missed it, and then I guess the viewer could have missed it.
I could have missed it, so then you could miss it. The logic tracks. It was just how you got there that was amazing.
No, I don't know. It was good, but at the same time, if you're not a fan of documentaries or true crime, you're probably gonna get a bit bored. This story in particular was interesting. Like it was hard to watch, and it was like you feel a little disgusted with this guy, and you do want to see him get caught, and then you find the original kid, which I don't know. Did they ever even find him? Like, what happened to this kid?
No, they haven't found the kid.
You think he's dead or like an adult somewhere? Or that's crazy. But
Yeah, he's just sitting at home watching The Imposter and laughing. Like he just like ran away.
Don't see it in the movie, but Nicholas was actually the imposter, impostering himself. So he's been there the whole time.
He was the French man.
do you think it's possible that the French guy killed the kid and then took his place? Or does that
No, because he was in Spain at that, or he was in France and Spain. He'd never been to the US.
Okay.
He
Interesting.
could lie.
That's true. He could lie and be like, I was there, but I wasn't. No, it was good, but I think it was missable. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm already conflicted because I fell asleep watching it. So
At 8 in the evening.
it's like, yeah. I'm usually in bed by 6:15. So this was up late for me, and no, I think I think the story is excellent. I didn't think the film was that great. I think the film was a bit talking heady for a documentary at times. Um, so, and I think that's why. I think that's all it was. It was just the style for me, but the story is unbelievable. Like the story, like if so, the story is wild. Would it be my favorite of documentaries? No, but I'm not a big true crime person either, admittedly. Like I saw another, I do like documentaries. I've grown like over the last few years. I've grown to really enjoy documentaries, especially good ones. But if they're a little bit too talking heady, where it's sort of like interview clip. But I saw one this week and it was fabulous, and it balanced animation and all this stuff. Anyway, I'm dovetailing away from the film. So, I mean, I think it's a movie for me that has an incredible story, and if you're a true crime person, don't miss it. But I mean, if you're a casual film goer, I could have missed it. I'm with JT on that. But I thought I thought the story was amazing. Like I'm glad you showed it to us, Kat. Like it really is a wild, wild story. What?
Frederick.
Oh, you were on mute there. I didn't hear what you said. All I saw was
I
you
said I
did-
just take off of my mask and I'm just Frederick.
Dun, dun, dun. That's
I
it.
liked it
So
too
you're
because the actual imposter was interviewed, right? Like he had his side of the story too. I did look it up, and Nicholas was 13 when he went missing, and he's still listed as missing. He'd be 40. He'd be my age today. So I am Nicholas. I'm glad. I appreciate you guys watching it because I always love.
Kat, question. Do you know how old was Frederick when he impersonated Nicholas?
I believe in the documentary, I believe he was 26.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
so it was like Hollywood casting. Okay.
Yeah, I think they said he was 23.
Either 23, yeah, 23.
23.
Was an episode
Impersonating
of
a 16 and a half year old. Because he had aged 3.5 years. It's also like cosmic almost in the sense that not in the sense that out of all the missing people in the world, he picked Nicholas, and he didn't even know what he looked like. He just had a black and white photo.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. Like, it's one of those things that truly you do have to see to believe.
But I agree, if you're not really into true crime and you're like, I'd rather watch sports documentaries or something.
It was just how it was shot. That was all.
Yeah.
I thought the story was great. It was just I thought it was a little simple, but
not highbrow enough for our station. I'm just kidding.
Am I thumbing my nose at you? Is that what I'm
Yes.
doing? Is that...
Mm.
No, it was fascinating. It really was interesting. So thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate it.
Yeah,
I know we all
for
do.
sure.
I know I do. Well, I mean, this wraps us up for this week. I think next week, who's next week? Is it Riley?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, what are we watching, Riley? Is it
I believe it is going to be Zodiac.
I'm excited.
Another lighthearted, fun
Well,
romp
it
for us
follows
all.
the trend of true crime, I suppose, but just a little bit less documentary.
I've just learned very much that we're all deeply depressed, is what I've learned.
Oh,
We all.
You just learned this?
You've known us all for a very long time.
That's fair. Every film we've had has been incredibly intense in tone, and that's great. It's good. We're having some great conversations, but it's just funny. Probably because
So we
last
hit
time we had
Daniel's
like we were like interspersing like comedy and all this stuff.
Yeah, that's why you got to pick genres.
With what?
You have to alternate the genres because we had genres that we had to do.
That'll be season 3. Same style, but we'll like pick a genre or something like that.
Listen, it's a cruel world out there. We're just living in it. That should be your tagline.
Next season's rule is just going to be like, you can pick whatever movie you want, just it can't have the vague blue shading on it, because then it's not going to be a depressed film.
No.
It's fair.
There are so many other movies that I want to be like, you need to watch this.
I know. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us this week. Well, I'm looking forward to next week when we'll be back with Riley's pick. But once again, it's not about the movies you miss. It's about the movies that matter. Bye-bye.